Well, you know, ISIS is promising Britain will be next. British Prime Minister David Cameron's promised that ISIS will be wiped off the map, and any British citizen standing with the terror group can kiss their passport goodbye, something the UK independence leader Nigel Farage was for the first to call for. You might recognize this gentleman. He's getting a great deal more press. Some would say he could be the next Prime Minister of Britain, but I'm getting ahead of myself. It's very good to have you, sir. But
Thank you.
Britain seems to be much more forceful and vocal in addressing ISIS than our president.
Well, I think we're very, very concerned that perhaps up to 1,000 of our own citizens are fighting with ISIS. It's even thought that the beheadings of the Americans were conducted by a British passport holder. So, you know, we're seeing this every day. We're aware of it. I said a couple of weeks ago, I really think that if somebody has gone off to fight for an international terror group that is against all of our Western values, we should not let them back in the country and take away their passport.
That's assuming they want to get back in the country.
Well, some will, some won't.
To do harm.
But, well, yes, and I mean, these people would have been further radicalised, brutalised by what they've been through. I don't want them back into Britain, and it seems the Prime Minister has picked up on that line, so that must be good.
You picked up on the ISIS threat, and more particularly the Western world's vulnerability to terror, for a lot of people. What did you see that now a lot of your supporters, even your critics, are quoting now?
Well, I think the problem is that we've got, with Obama and with Cameron, we've got people following foreign policies going on from Blair and Bush that are entirely contradictory. You know, at one moment in time we hate the Iranians, now we see them as being our allies. 15 months ago, the British government tried to force through the House of Commons a piece of legislation to arm the rebels who were fighting Assad in Syria. Those rebels have now become ISIS. So we are just all over the place with this.
Well, so were we.
No, I know. Right. I mean, we've been all over the place with this.
What would you do?
Well, I would just say this. You know, I do not want us to get involved again in big, heavy foreign military interventions until first we've worked out what is the end game. You know, should we back the Kurds? If we do, let's accept there'll be an independent Kurdistan state. If we take on ISIS, you know, we'll be in for the fight of our lives. It may well be the right thing to do, because for the first time in the Middle East, I think it's pretty clear who the good guys and the bad guys are. So I think there is a case here for military action, but let's work out first what the end game is.
Why do and have so many Brits joined ISIS?
We've seen increased radicalisation within the United Kingdom. Much of this, I'm afraid to say, is a self-inflicted wound. We've had 4 decades of state-sponsored multiculturalism. We've actually encouraged people not to come together and to be British, but to live separately, to live apart. We even had
kind of like what we're doing here.
Yes. No, there are similarities. We even had the Archbishop of Canterbury suggesting that Sharia law would be acceptable in British cities. So I'm afraid we have been weak, and we have not been muscular in standing up and saying to people, we are a Christian country. We have a Christian constitution, a Judeo-Christian culture, and we've allowed our schools to be infiltrated. Our prisons, you know, are now perhaps where jihadism is on the march more rapidly than anywhere else. Much of this we've done to ourselves.
Do you know, or can you share the information that led to the heightened terror alert in your country?
No, I don't know. I have to say that the day before this happened, there was a major defection from the Conservative Party to UKIP, but I wonder whether the real crisis actually
a lot of people were saying that.
Was more political. I don't know. It's dangerous to speculate on things like this because they might have had good reasons. You know, what I am certain of is whatever you as America and we as Britain decide to do about ISIS in Iraq and in Syria, our first priority was to make sure that our own countries are safe, and I think we've all got a lot more work to do.
A lot of people argue that ISIS is paying whatever it does to dates, that they're very cognizant, as are a lot of terrorists, to dates, whether it's attacks in Britain at your subway system and everywhere, whether in this country, the World Trade Center in Washington. Do you think there is anything to that we should be more cognizant approaching the 9/11 anniversary, that they could be up to something?
I think we have to be constantly vigilant, and I think that some of the rules that we previously had have to go out of the window. We have to beef up our security services, but above all, it's the signals that go from the top through our communities. And I'll say it again, our schools, our prisons, all of these public institutions are where radicalism is on the increase, and that is something we can do something about.
You know, Ms. Farage, it wasn't that long ago that people laughed at you, and now they're mentioning some of your pressing remarks on terror, warning about ISIS, etc. Britain's open-door policy, this multiculturalism that maybe bred this. And now they're talking about you and Prime Minister in the same sentence.
Well, let's see. There's a long way to go. I mean, we did in May of this year, win the European elections across the United Kingdom. Right. It's the first time that a so-called, we're called the insurgent party has topped the polls. We're about to win a parliamentary by-election in a couple of weeks' time. We're on the march.
They've called you Maggie Thatcher with a tie.
Well, I don't know. If I could get anywhere close to being the sort of leader she was, I'd be very pleased. Whether you agreed with her or not, at least you knew the direction in which you were going. And you know, right. We've had enough of boring politicians. Indeed. Sir, thank you. More to this.
Hi, I'm William Devane. And look at this. $17.5 trillion in debt. And by tomorrow, it will have risen another 500 million. Now, if that doesn't concern you, it should. How do you get more control over your investments and retirement with debt like this racking up against you? Buy gold and silver from Roslyn Capital. Gold and silver are the only currencies that make me feel secure, something that paper money can't do. Roslyn will beat any price of any coin at any time. Just call them. And Roslyn ships my gold and silver in 10 days or less, faster than anyone else. So if you're concerned by this, protect yourself with this. Buy gold and silver from Roslyn Capital. What's in your safe?
Call now to get a free gold kit, silver kit, IRA transfer kit, and free safe to store your gold. Call 800-630-8900, 800-630-8900, 800-630-8900.
I'm Randy, and I quit smoking with Chantix. For 33 years, I chose to keep smoking because it was easier to smoke than it was to quit.
Along with support, Chantix varenicline is proven to help people quit smoking. It's a non-nicotine pill.
Chantix reduced the urge for me to smoke. It actually caught me by surprise.
Some people had changes in behavior, thinking or mood, hostility, agitation, depressed mood, and suicidal thoughts or actions while taking or after stopping Chantix. If you notice any of these, stop Chantix and call your doctor right away. Tell your doctor about any history of mental health problems, which could get worse while taking Chantix. Don't take Chantix if you've had a serious allergic or skin reaction to it. If you develop these, stop Chantix and see your doctor right away, as some can be life-threatening. Tell your doctor if you have a history of heart or blood vessel problems, or if you develop new or worse symptoms. Get medical help right away if you have symptoms of a heart attack or stroke. Use caution when driving or operating machinery. Common side effects include nausea, trouble sleeping, and unusual dreams.
I did not know what it was like to be a non-smoker, but I do now.
Ask your doctor if Chantix is right for you.
They always make their point and push the issue. This is The Five. Powerful opinions and straight talk. Join The Five weeknights on Fox News Channel.
Let's go over my expectations.
I want great coverage, personalized coverage.
If my car insurance company wants to treat me like the most important person in the world, I'm fine with that.
Sounds like Amica is your kind of auto insurance company. Call us now for a free quote.
Be helpful.
Be nice.
Explain my options, why they're important, how they can help me save money later on.
That's what Amica's all about, taking the time to get your coverage right. We should make the phone number bigger.
Yes. I want my home and auto insurance together with one really good company.
Do a little research about Amica and you'll be impressed. We're very proud of all the recognition.
Respect, courtesy, running out of fingers here, savings.
You could save up to 15% by combining auto and home insurance with Amica.
My friend has Amica, and she says the claim service is the best she's ever seen.
My neighbor said he'd never leave Amica.
Yes, talk to our customers. They'll tell you nobody takes care of their policyholders like Amica. Or just call for a quote right now. Write the number down. Maybe they can pause it. Grab a pen.
The CDC hitting the panic button on Ebola here as doctors deal with sheer panic over there. This new video showing what happened after a suspected Ebola patient tried to escape a clinic in Liberia. Now, it took a team of medical staff to capture, control him, and take him to Jonathan Seri on a disease that at least over there is out of control. Who knows over here? Jonathan.
Hi, Neil. Well, there is now news of a third American patient infected with the Ebola virus over in West Africa. That American is a doctor and a medical missionary with the organization SIM USA. The Christian charity says 51-year-old Rick Sacra had not been working in an Ebola ward, but with obstetrics patients. Although the path of transmission is still under investigation, organization officials say it's possible he got the virus from a patient patient whose symptoms were masked and went undetected by routine admission screening going on at his hospital. Obviously, a maternity ward is a very different setting from the Ebola clinic that another SIM missionary, Nancy Wrightbull, and Samaritan's Purse Dr. Kent Brantley were working in when they became sick earlier this summer. Both of those patients were flown back to the U.S., where they recovered in a special isolation unit at Emory University. SIM officials say they're keeping all options open for Dr. Sacra, but right now the focus is on his treatment in an Ebola isolation unit in Liberia, and it remains unclear whether he'll be medevaced to the U.S. Meanwhile, in her first public appearance since recovering from Ebola, Nancy Wrightbull described one of the most difficult aspects of this disease. Listen.
I watched as people were by themselves, not able to have a family member near them, not able to feel the touch of another person near them because they're isolated.
And Nancy Wrightbull described her own experience the moment she found out that she had tested positive for Ebola. She says her husband, David, tried to comfort her, wanted to give her a hug, but she told him to stay back, knowing the risks that were involved. And so it's certainly good to see the two of them standing side by side during that news conference, Neil.
Indeed, Jonathan. Thank you very much. Jonathan Sari in Atlanta. Well, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, a frequent guest of this show, says if we want to stop Ebola from becoming a problem here, we do need to kill it there once and for all. But we're not near that, are we? In fact, it seems it's got to be getting worse.
No, it clearly is. The CDC director was very clear that we're at a tipping point. What you worry about is that you're going to have a sufficiently large number of cases over there that you get to a point where it's very hard to stop the continued spread of the virus. And if you listen to what the CDC director said, he was very clear. He's clearly concerned that we're getting to that point, we're approaching that point where it's going to be very hard to go in there with the requisite resources to snuff this out.
All right, so assuming they don't get their act together, we don't help them get their act together, or for whatever reason there's a lack of communication from a lot of these African countries to get their act together, then what?
Well, I think the United States and the Western countries need to be going in with a much more robust effort. It's unclear why we haven't done this. There's a bipartisan consensus to do it. The administration needs to lead. It begs the question who the CDC director was talking to when he was raising these concerns. Clearly he's talking to the administration. Hopefully the administration is going to step up and go in there in a very robust way. If we don't, you're going to see the continued spread in that region. You're going to see potentially tens of thousands of cases and a real catastrophe on our hands. And once it really takes hold in that region, it's going to be hard to contain to those countries. You're going to see a lot of civil unrest. People are going to leave those borders, and you're going to start to see some global spread. We don't want to get to that point. We have the opportunity to go in there now. We ought to be doing it.
All right, we went from 7 African nations that had shut down their airports and traveled to and from the region to now, I think, 3, including Liberia. Right. So you think they're prematurely letting down their guard?
Well, look, it's a real concern that they're shutting the borders, they're shutting airports, they're creating cordons, trying to hold people in those cordons and quarantines. That's going to just add to civil unrest and add to the strain on these nations. What we could be doing is going into some of the adjacent countries and helping them beef up their public health resources so they don't feel the impulse to have to close their borders while we go into the affected countries and treat the patients who have the disease and help them out. But what's happening, the response that's happening to try to just section off entire regions of these countries, that's going to ultimately lead to increased unrest and propagate the virus even more.
Real quickly, will this mutate?
Well, it is mutating. The question is, can it mutate to become airborne? It's highly unlikely, but it is mutating in ways that could potentially make it harder to diagnose and treat.
Doctor, thank you very much. Good seeing you again. Scott
Thanks.
Gottlieb. All right, thousands of illegals pouring into this country. So why is the Donald flipping out over the one legal American who can't get back into this country? When Sergeant Tamarisi's mom has been asking the same thing for months, and she's here to tell the president, fix this for my boy once and for all, now.